Mayor Jacobs,
I'm here.
Mr. Walter,
Here.
Ms. Orabana,
Here.
Mr. Leonard,
Here.
Mr. Rodelius,
Here.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Here.
Mr. Wild,
Here.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
I'm here.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk, sent to the Bernardsville News and the Courier News and to all subscribers, and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 9th, 2026.
Please stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
I'll open it up to the public. If you have anything that you would like to discuss or comments, now's the time. This is anything that's not on the agenda. How about online, Janine?
We
Anybody?
do have some people online, so if you have something to discuss that's not on the agenda, can raise your hand or unmute yourself, and then you can make your comment. No one is raising their hand or unmuting themselves, so online it doesn't look like we have any public comment that is not to do with the agenda.
Okay, so we'll close it to the public at this time. We have minutes that we need to approve from February 5th. You have,
Make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain, Brian and Lou, both abstain. We also have a resolution that we need to approve. Arinsky. Resolution 2026005.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution. Second.
Roll call.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Ms. Orabana?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Rodelius?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni?
Aye.
Mr. Wild, I don't believe you were here for that one, correct? And Chairwoman Gutschall.
Aye. We have nothing for completeness. We're up to date. Okay. We can start our hearing. Air service.
Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. Again, my name is Christopher Quinn, QUINN, attorney here on behalf of the applicant, George Walker Field Inc., which does business as Somerset Air Services. Property in question is the Somerset Airport, 150 Airport Road, Block 61, Lot 6. It's in the R10 zone. Obviously, it's an existing airport, flight school administrative offices here. The project we're seeking approval tonight is for phased project improvements to address current modernization needs for the airport. We're not proposing any changes. Just want to note that we're not proposing any changes to the runway itself. It's just 3 phases involved: improved indoor hangar spaces for planes. Currently, there's several hangars as well as a number of outdoor tie-up spaces. But with the cost and sophistication of current planes, it demands really this type of indoor hangar facility. The fourth phase involves a new 12,000 square foot building on the north side of the runways, which would be offices, administrative operations, the flight school, maintenance areas. Again, the current space is used by the airport's inadequate. It's been the same, hasn't changed in decades, and this space would be utilized to effectively bring this up to date. The airport use is permitted, meets all the conditions. This application is seeking preliminary final major site plan approval, but we do have one bulk variance with respect to lot coverage. 10% is permitted. We're proposing 10.62%. Again, it's a function of needing with the runway in its location and not really being able to propose the buildings close to the runway. It requires us further out. So, effectively, that's the basis for the lot coverage variance. We also have design waivers with respect to shade trees and curbing as well. Now, I have 3 witnesses here tonight to testify. I guess what our plan is going to be is to have our civil engineer, Ron Kennedy, come up and give an introduction. He's going to just kind of give a background of the project and go through quickly what's actually being proposed. Then I'll have the applicant's representative, Steve Parker, testify to the operations and the driving force behind this project. Then we'll have their aviation engineer, Richard Holes, testify about the buildings that's being proposed, as well as how the site meets all FAA requirements. And then finally, once he's done, we'll have Mr. Kennedy testify to the rest of the more detailed engineering. But I just wanted to give him time up front so that he can explain for the board and to the public to understand kind of the scope of the project, so they have kind of a bearings when you hear the rest of the application. If there's no other questions, we can proceed afterwards.
Okay, just so you know, we won't take any new testimony after 10 o'clock. So we'll finish,
Great.
hopefully. Tom is online. I think.
This is Tom. Now let's swear in all 3 witnesses. I'm sorry, Chris, but just in case anybody has to pipe in out of order. So
Sure.
all 3 witnesses, please stand. Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And please state your names, spell your last names, and give us an address.
Ron Kennedy, Kennedy, 265 Main Street in Gladstone, New Jersey. Stephen Parker, Karker, 130 Airport Road, Bedminster.
Richard Holes, Holes, 5147 Arvona, Irvona Road, Kerwinsville, Pennsylvania, Curwensville.
Thank you, gentlemen. And the board recognizes and accepts Ron Kennedy's qualifications as a professional engineer and professional planner. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy, you heard my introduction. What I asked you to do is just go through the board, give them a background and bearing of the property, the existing airport operations, as well as what's being proposed by the applicant.
Okay. Janine, access to exhibits. Mr. Collins, I have a series of exhibits. I'll introduce each one at a time. Is that okay?
That's fine. That's fine.
Yep, you should be able to log on.
I'm logged on. I just have to share. So it's being shared.
Do you have the right? Yep, there you go.
I'm in. Okay. All right, good evening. The part of my presentation tonight is to focus on what the improvements are, describe the existing conditions of the property, and really just give, I'll say, an overview of all the improvements that are being proposed. So bear with me, but I'll go through that and logically go through the things that you typically would want to understand of the property. The first exhibit I have up is a neighborhood aerial exhibit with today's date. It's essentially a Google Map image outlining various features of the surrounding community.
Okay, marked as A1.
And in the simple form for getting the reference, north is directly up on this exhibit. Burnt Mills Road in Bedminster is left to right at the top of the sheet. Airport Road is up and down on the right side. The north branch of the Raritan River I'm pointing to now is on the left side of the property, or the west side of the property, with Burnt Mills Road in Branchburg Township on the left side of this exhibit. And the other prominent feature on the right lower side to basically the right top is Meadow Road in Bridgewater Township. I've outlined in the orange color the boundary between Bridgewater, Branchburg, and Bedminster Township, and generally follows the river of the north branch of the Raritan River. The site itself is highlighted in yellow with access and frontage on Airport Road. The adjoining uses are along Airport Road to the east side are residential properties in the 1 to 3 acre range of density. To the lower right is in Bridgewater Township in the R40 zone, which is generally a 40,000 square foot property zones that were developed in the 70s and 80s. To the south of the site is an open space property that Somerset County owns that they purchased. To the north of the site are larger estate lots that are generally farming or forested areas. And then in Branchburg Township, between the town line and Burnt Mills Road in Branchburg, are a couple of larger estates that have farmland preservation on them. The overall site itself, we said block 61, lot 6, it's 200.464 acres. And it's known as George Walker Field, doing business as Air Service. I go to the next exhibit, I'm zooming in. So this is just an aerial exhibit, and it is an image that's just tighter to the site. The same orientation, Airport Road's on the right, on the screen, and east, and on the left towards the north branch of the Raritan River is in orange. That's highlighted as the town boundary.
I'll have marked as A2. Ron, I think you got to slow a little bit because there's a lag, I think, between your screen and what we're seeing up there.
Okay, you want me to?
Yeah.
Bingo. All right, I can blow it up into bigger. I got as big as I can here. I'll blow it up when we get to some details. No, but the presentation, I can't just, yeah, when I'm in presentation mode, I try to zoom in. So this exhibit itself, same area, it's highlighted in yellow. I do have the environmental constraints, but I want to zoom in tighter to the next exhibit before I talk about the environmental constraints. The purpose of this exhibit is to show all 200 acres, and generally on half the lot on the right side is what is the airport, okay, and the functions of the airport itself as far as runways, whether they're turf or asphalt, the buildings themselves that are the hangars or the maintenance or the office. But essentially half of it, or the left side to the west, is all along the north branch of the Raritan River, floodplain, wetlands, generally wooded. That's all along there. So the point of this exhibit is really just showing it's half and half. Half is the I'll call it developed portion where the improvements are, the historic improvements to the property. And then on the left side is generally floodplains and wetlands that are associated with the north branch of the Raritan River. The next exhibit is the environmental constraints. Again, same image. Now I'm zooming in a little tighter to the east side of the property where the improvements are. And it's showing a couple things that I want to highlight. To highlight on this, the property was developed as the airport in the 40s. It opened in 1946. It has currently 19 total buildings. The existing floor area of all those buildings is 122,679 square foot. The existing buildings are comprised of hangars, okay, mechanical space, a medevac hangar, and an office.
And I'm sorry, can we just mark this as A3 for the record? And this is just a rendering of the site?
Ron, what was that square footage again? Sorry.
I can repeat that. Okay, 122,679 square feet. It's the gross floor area of the existing conditions. The main office itself, which is only 2,913 square foot, so 2,913 square foot, that was built in the original airport, 1946, in that World War II era. And it has the administrative offices, it has the pilot's lounge, the flight school, the passenger waiting area, the radio equipment room, the airport restrooms, and the employee locker rooms, in a very confined space, anyone that's been out there. But it's a small space that has a lot of different uses that are there. The mechanical hangar, and I'll go through the details of that, is another space that's there where the maintenance occurs. The medevac hangar exists, building C, and we'll talk that when I go through more detail. And generally, the rest of the buildings on that property is hangar space. So it's generally unheated space that's hangars, and there's a couple of different sizes and models and different shapes of these hangar spaces that are there. I will go through the details of that when I get a little farther into my discussion. There's 3 runways on this property. The principal one, which is an asphalt surface that runs northwest to southeast, is called runway 12-30. And that's just the orientation of a compass. That is 65 foot wide and 2,738 feet long. 2,738 feet long. Right? And in this exhibit, if I'll point to it right now, generally from, again, the northwest on this exhibit to the southeast, left to right. The next runway is a turf runway. That's 1735. And that runs north and south. And that runway itself is 60 foot wide and 1,697 feet long, 1,697. And the last runway, runway 8-26, is again a turf surface. The exhibit shows it in green. And that runs northeast to southwest. That's 100 foot wide and 1,672 foot long. As you heard from Mr. Quinn, this application proposes no changes to any of the runways or the approaches to any of the runways. No changes to those in this application. Access to the site is limited to Airport Road on the eastern property line that has the access to the site. The office is in the center of the site in the V that's created by the 2 runways. Currently, the office, one of the hangars that has the state police medevac in it, and hangar D, which is maintenance, is heated space. The other spaces are not. And this becomes important with your definition and how the floor area. Okay, so again, the other space is not heated. The only space is what we call building A, office, building C, which is the medevac space, medevac helicopter space, and building D are heated spaces. Currently, the approximate number of planes that can be stored within the hangar is 80 planes and the 1 helicopter. Right? Sometimes that could change with the size of the planes, but that's what's really designed right now, 80 planes and 1 for the helicopter. There are also plane tie downs on the exterior of the site that have tie downs for the planes. You see they're stored outside and they're spread throughout different areas of the site itself. There's circulation around each hangar for both vehicles, cars, trucks, as well as airplanes that are tied to the taxi gates. Currently, the parking for the site around the office, and I'm going to blow this up if it works well. It's still reasonable. Okay. The office area, which is marked A, building A, that has 34 parking spaces that are associated with that. Next to building D, on the west side of building D, there's 16 parking spaces that are there. within each hangar, there's generally a parking space within the hangar. Pilots, if they use a plane and take off, they'll generally put, a lot of times, their vehicle, if it's their own hangar, in the park inside that hangar as they go out and use their planes. And then from an old approval, there is an area I found 11 banked parking spots that are grass right now that are shown along the driveway just to the north of Building A. A number of years ago, this board approved some fuel tank storage that's above ground, right? And it is just to the west of Building A. You can see on my pointer. It shows up, yeah, there it is. It's showing there, that's fuel tank, it's above ground fuel tank storage. That was approved by this board, that was installed, I'd say within the last 10 years. The existing lot coverage on the site is 9.26 acres. 9.26 acres is the existing lot coverage.
9.62%?
No, oh, sorry, 9.26%. 9.26%. Right. It's actually 18.56 acres. What I also want to go over is just, I'm going to start with this exhibit and go back to exhibit 2, is the environmental constraints on the property. As I generally said, the left side or the west side on the exhibits, that's generally floodplains, wetlands, and other elements that are environmentally restricted on the property. A freshwater wetlands letter of interpretation was done by DEP and approved back in 2021. That's still valid today. And you will see not only the wetlands, but the transition areas associated with those that are shown in the blue color. There is also a wetland that is up along the frontage in a wooded area along Airport Road that you can see on the right side of this exhibit that has not only the wetlands, but a transition associated with that. I'm going to refer back to exhibit 2 and just show the limits of some of the flood conditions that are on this property. The first thing is, in a previous application, there was a...
Ron, can you make that a little bigger?
Yeah, yeah. Better?
Right.
Right, so the first element, in a previous application, there was a conservation easement associated with the stream corridor that was 14.557 acres that was granted to Bedminster Township in a previous application. So that's directly adjacent to the river frontage. We also have in this, it probably shows up on the screen, a darker pink line where my pointer is now. That is the floodway line. Right, and then there's 2 other lighter pink lines that are both the 100-year flood line and the flood hazard area limit line. They're all shown on screen. Again, we're not proposing any development in it, but I just wanted for reference that a significant portion of the west side of the property is in various forms of flood restrictions. The next exhibit is a new exhibit, and I'll just entitle that Site Plan Rendering with today's date.
Now the A4.
A4. And as was stated, same orientation, north being directly up, right side's Airport Road. You see the driveway that comes in, the main driveway that comes in. The office area A is in the center of the site where the 2 intersecting runways occur. And what we're requesting is approval for additional buildings on the site, no changes to the runways. Existing driveway access would remain the same. And I have it in 4 separate zones or areas on the property, because this could be phased, and I'll talk about phasing later, that each area is distinct, and we try to make them stand alone in the improvements that are required for each area. So if I go to the north area, which is proposed building T, as in Tom, the proposal here is for moving the office, the maintenance, and hangar to the north side of the grass runway. It would be a total of 4,000 square foot for the office space, 8,000 square foot for the hangar space, for a total of 12,000 square foot. Because it's on the other side of the north side of the turf runway, the access for vehicular access would have to be on the east side of the runway. So my pointer is all the way towards Airport Road. And it would have to come up along parallel to the turf runway and come into a proposed parking lot that I'm gonna blow up a little tighter. And that would be a parking area for 19 cars that would be in that area. Circulation around the building. And that lighter area would be more of the airport side for the air vehicles, whether it's an airplane or a helicopter in that area. And it would have a taxiway that would go out to the taxi. Right, so that's there. It would also have a fence that would section off what is in the gray parking areas for general circulation from the airport side of things. That would be a fence between that, so no one could drive out to, there'd be gates there, but basically no one could drive out to that lighter tan area where a plane could be, no one could drive out there. The gate, obviously, if someone needed to get through that from an operation standpoint, but a gate would be there. So to the left of this exhibit is the taxiway, airport side. The tan area to the south of the actual building T would be the area that's the laydown area for the airport side for plane. And then the gray would be more vehicular access and vehicular parking, with the driveway going all the way out again to the main driveway and ultimately to Airport Road. We chose not to bring the driveway out to Airport Road and not have another curb cut to Airport Road. It was a choice we had, and we were able to meet the standards by putting that perpendicular to the end of the runway, outside the runway, and from, I'm assuming from the FAA regulations. Okay. The center piece, a little easier. That's an existing area where we call building U, proposed building U. That's an existing paved area today. You can see under this exhibit, there's tie downs that airplanes exist now. That's just a Google image that was taken at a certain time. But the notion here is that there would be a 3-bay hangar that would be constructed 62 by 182, 3 separate bays. No new impervious coverage for that area. And the size of that hangar is 11,532 square foot. Adding slide gates to the main driveway that is just to the east of the hangar. And another slide gate fence that is to the west and south of the hangar. So separating out vehicle traffic from the air side. And the only ones that would be allowed to travel through there would be people that would be going to their actual hangar itself. If the owner of a plane that has a vehicle in the hangar, they would be able to drive through that and go to their hangar. The next phase is on the east side of the site. In this case, underneath this exhibit, you're going to see approximately 7 hangars that are there. They are the original hangars that were built back in the 40s and 50s for the site. Small, outdated, not great shape. They're occupied, but they're not in great shape. They would be removed. So 7 of those hangars would be removed, and they'd be replaced by 2 new buildings that would house 2 different types of size planes. In building V, it would be T hangars. It's called T hangars, which has access from both sides. And each bay is shaped like a T that is alternating back and forth with each other. When the airport consultant comes up, they'll be able to describe that in detail. But from a site standpoint, essentially, you can have a plane on each side that comes into their bay. Okay, so each bay, there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bays on one side, and there would be 5 bays on the other side.
So, which ones are going to be removed?
These buildings along here, under existing conditions map, I can go back to it. Just go back to one page. Right here. So if I go back to A our existing conditions map, which is
Okay.
Exhibit 3. These hangars here, Tim,
Oh, gotcha.
okay, see J, K, L, M, N, O, and P?
Yep.
Okay, they're all
I'll say
historic, they're old, they've been there from the beginning. They'd be removed and then replaced with more modern, either a combination of T hangar, which is the one building, and then the next building itself
Gotcha, JKR, okay, thank you,
is V and W, so that the silhouette of some of those buildings you can see underneath this exhibit.
gotcha, thank you.
And then V is these T hangars, okay, that building itself is 50-foot wide by 231 foot long, 12,012 square feet. And then there would be another hangar W, that would be just 4 units themselves, 4 hangar bays themselves, not T hangars, they'd be full depth. They would be 52 by 225 for 11,648 square foot. And then the last area, the fourth area, and I'll zoom out for a second just so we get our orientation correctly, is all the way at the bottom of the sheet or the south part of the property. And that is the south side. And that phase would include removing a hangar that exists just below this building X, if you can see that. And it would be replacing it with a 2-bay hangar that would be 62 by 112 for 6,944 square foot. And then it would be a 3-bay hangar on the west side of the south, 62 by 168, and that's 10,416 square feet. Again, all these numbers I'm talking about are all on our plans. Everyone's listed out in charts on these plans that are consistent with what I've been testifying to. So if we look at all the phases of the project itself, if we look at all 4 phases of this, we're essentially moving 8 hangar spaces in 8 buildings. Okay, 7 on the east side, the small ones I showed, and then the 1 on the south side. So a total of 8 hangars that are 8 buildings would be removed. The new buildings that are shown in the brown area would accommodate up to 22 vehicle planes in 6 new buildings. When we look at the overall site, the proposed airplanes that could be stored within the hangars is approximately 94 planes, plus the helicopter. And then the existing is 8. So we're going from 80 to 94. The other aspect is there's tie downs that are there on the property, and we'd be reducing the number of tie downs that would be around the property. That's very flexible. I think the owner will be talking about tie downs in more detail than I can, because that is a fluid of where tie downs are, but we'd be reducing tie downs where we're physically putting buildings up that currently have tie downs now. So we'd be reducing some of those tie downs. Overall, the site, there's existing 19 buildings. The proposed would have 17 buildings, more square footage, but less buildings. All right. Total building coverage that we're removing is 9,178. Total new building coverage, the new buildings themselves, is 64,552. So the new coverage, the net of the new coverage is 55,374. Those are just all the different square footages. When we look at net habitable floor area for your definition, that would include the buildings that are the heated spaces, not the unheated spaces. The existing is 23,918 square foot for approximately 0.27% of an FAR, 0.27%. The proposed would be 35,918, which is 0.41% from an FAR standpoint. The total lot coverage of all phases now on the property is proposed would be 927,655, which is 10.62 acres, 10.62. Obviously, your ordinance is 10%.
Ron, you said acres again. You meant percentage, right?
Percentage. I'm sorry, Tom. Yes, you're right. Thank you. 10.62%. As far as parking, we're not removing any parking that's there as far as the parking for spaces. So it's still around area A, the 34 spaces, around area D, building D, the 16 spaces. The new area T, which is the north side, the T hangar, the maintenance and office, that would have a total of 19 spaces. So the total surface space count would go up to 69 spaces, plus again, the notion that one space per hangar itself, it could be up to another 95 spaces. And then we have the bank parking at 11. Doing the calculations in your ordinance for required parking, there's two criteria that seem to apply to this. That's consistent with what previous applications have been done on this property. Is the office space of one space for every 200 square foot of net habitable floor area. So that's 694 square foot would require 31 spaces. And then from the airport side, it's one space for every 5 based aircraft. So we're saying it'd be a total of 95 spaces or 95 aircraft. Plus, right now, when we reduce these, 10 tie downs for a total required of 21 spaces for the air side. So that's a total of 52 when we add the office and we add the air side. So again, 52 would be required per your ordinance. What's there today, plus what we have, we have a total of 69 spaces plus the hangar spaces. So again, you'll hear more from an operations standpoint. That's more than adequate, but we do meet the criteria in your ordinance for parking.
Ron, did you just mention that there was reduction of 10 tie downs associated with this project?
No, it's actually, again, I think the other witness will talk about the tie downs, but right now in the area that we looked at, there was 24 tie downs. Right? When we're done, it's 10 tie downs. We're actually removing 14 tie downs. Okay, but I'm going to say that's fluid. More tie downs could be added. If you look at even X number of years ago when they had the glider operation, there was tie downs in all different locations on there. So I don't know the history of the tie downs. Certainly the operator does, but there's definitely some fluid aspects of tie down spaces on this property.
Excuse me, Ron. You said the proposed changes were 94 planes.
Well, that's the total.
The total, 94 planes. Does that include all tie down locations and all hangars? Or does that allow for some expansion or anything that can change?
So the 94 is the total inside the building. Okay, that would be total inside a hangar space.
Okay.
Okay, and again, some of these hangars are large open spaces that have 4 or 5 planes in them that we've accounted for on some of the larger buildings. Obviously, if you know, there's limits of what size planes on this property, but there are different configurations of number of planes that could be in some of these spaces. Not a lot, but there is some minor deviation from those things. You're not doubling it, but there is some deviation that could occur in that. But right now, it's the 94 plus whatever the tie down number is. Again, we're using a number of 10 tie down spaces that remain from what we had. Because the other ones, the 14, we're simply putting buildings over the top of tie downs that are there now.
Going back to the original number, you said something about 80 planes right now.
That's existing today.
Existing, correct. And that includes all the tie downs there?
No, just in the buildings.
Just in the buildings?
Yeah,
Okay,
so again,
I wanted to
let's
just
be,
clarify
so
that.
80 to 94 in buildings.
In buildings.
Okay. And then I'm going to say is 24 tie downs that we showed that were there, that we have now. Okay, minus the removal of 14 down to 10. Okay, based on the fact that where tie downs are today, we're putting buildings on top of them. Okay, but those are pretty straightforward numbers that we've calculated that we have now. We're not proposing any expansion of any other buildings, but again, tie downs, I got to let the operator talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, some of the other things that are, I'll say, I'm just going to quickly, these are details that we will be back to attend more time with. There's review letters that we have to comply with and things, but I just want to put a high level. There's an existing well on the site between buildings B and C that's remaining. It's likely that we'll do another well over where the new maintenance facility is on the north side. We've already gotten that approved by the Board of Health, but we have to put that in, obviously, but over on near Hangar T, that we would do potentially another well that could be there. And primarily, it's just, we couldn't run a line across the glider field. We'd have to go all the way around. By the time you do that, it's probably worth just putting a well in that area. Sanitary sewer on this property. We are adding the office space that has a flow requirement for the sanitary sewer. That was already in an expansion number that was in the old approval and the last set of approvals with the Board of Health when the system was rebuilt probably about 10 or 15 years ago. We're less than what that expansion was with this additional square footage for the office. It basically requires us to put some additional septic tanks in and a pump, but the field does not need to be expanded. We did the design, the testing, and we've gone through the Board of Health and have the Board of Health approve. So the field itself is actually adjacent to Hangar T. So on this exhibit, it's just to the west of Hangar T, and the field doesn't change. We just have to put, again, a septic tank and a pump to pump it into that field with that excess capacity that was built into the original design.
Ron, just to be clear, that's the existing septic system? And so that field to the west of T is servicing the existing bathrooms?
In the office and in the maintenance facility. Yeah. Believe it or not, it gets pulled away from there.
there.
We didn't, again, I didn't do the testing, someone else did. I'm assuming, again, it's Bedminster soils. So on this stuff, it's sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. And I don't know where they tested, and how many different areas they tested, but that's where they ended up with it. All right, any new electric's going to be all underground. The only thing would be above ground, and there was a comment, Mr. Farrar's letter, would be transformers, but all the new service, nothing overhead. Obviously, that's a conflict with the airport operations anyway. Stormwater management, there'll be extensive stormwater management that required under the regulations, per your regulations, on attenuation, on water quality, on recharge. Soil testing's been done. A letter's been issued. A fair amount of comments that we have to go through on this. There is a lot of land area for here that have detention that is going to be required. We'll make it work, but the devil's in the details, and we will be working with Mr. Farrar's office going through all the details of storm water management. I think I'm going to stop right there on what I'm talking about now. Come back, we can talk about some landscaping, we can talk about lighting. What I do want to do, though, is I want to touch on one thing. I want to go through the variances, because I think that would be important for the board.
Yeah, sure.
When you get other questions on the basis of this thing. So just from a zoning standpoint, we know we're in the R10 zone, obviously. We know that the airport is a permitted use with conditions that are in the zone. Going back to 136013, those conditions include two: the length of the runway shall not exceed 3,000 feet, okay, at any of the runways. And we're not changing them. The longest runway is 2,737 feet, and we're not changing any of the runways. So we comply with that. The second one is essentially, it can only be on lot 61, lot 6. Okay, it can't acquire other properties, it can't do other things on top of that, according to your ordinance, and obviously we conform. We're on the same lot, we're not adding any lots. So those are the two criteria associated with the conditional use standards in the zone. We meet those conditions. But what we don't need are a couple things. The first one is the lot coverage itself, where 10% is required. 9.26% is existing. 10.62% is proposed. The change is 1.36%. Right? Those are the numbers that we've calculated. There's some other pre-existing non-conforming, some side yard setbacks for building S and R, which is on the south side. 100 foot's required. They're pre-existing. They're less than that. There was lot widths that we showed on our plan. We conform. It was something that we calculated incorrectly, but 1,500 foot is required. Where 1601 is the lot frontage, 1606 is the width, it conforms. Okay, it was just a calculation that wasn't done correctly. We do not need anything for pre-existing non-conforming. There's another automated surface observing system. It's an accessory structure, and that is located again by building R on the south side of the property, and it's only 12.9 feet from the property. I think it's a fence and some type of weather system that's there that has some equipment around it, but that exists, and we're not changing anything. There's distances between building requirements. You have a 30-foot requirement. Between two of those old buildings, they're only 3.27. Pre-existing, but we're removing it, so we're removing that relief that was there. And then between D&E buildings that exist today, it's 29.35. And again, 30 is required. Pre-existing, we're not changing. Design waivers. First one is paving and curbing for non-residential uses, which is required for 13508.3. We are not proposing any with a low volume of turnover that occurs on the property. There's no curbing on this property now, and we're not proposing any curbing associated with the new improvements, both the driveway that goes out to the north side as well as the area around the parking spaces. We're not proposing any curbing. On our plans, we calculated the resource conservation calculations. And that is a series of calculations associated with environmental constraints and different values associated with each constraint. And in a non-residential, it comes up with a maximum non-residential area based on the property. So when we do that, it comes up with 96,703 square foot. Right? And on the plans, we showed that needing relief at a design waiver, but actually that is based on your net habitable floor area, not your gross floor area. So if I put the net habitable floor area, which today is only 23,918, it complies with the proposed, with all the improvements, is 35,908, and that still conforms. So we do not need that design waiver for the resource conservation calculations. It will conform based on net habitable. And the last two items are one in your shade tree ordinance. Your shade tree ordinance. Under this, it would require 8 trees per acre. I'm assuming on the disturbed area, not on the whole property. And again, we're not proposing to plant additional trees other than the forestry management plan that exists throughout the whole property. Basically, due to the airport operation and trees not being friendly to the airport operation. There's a substantial amount of woods and woodlands on this property. There's a forestry management plan that I'll go into more detail about, and we're just proposing to continue that forestry management on the property, replanting. But it wouldn't be specifically like we would do in a more commercial operation in a parking lot or something else that we would plant trees. And the last one is not in your zoning ordinance, but it's in the lot development ordinance 12.6B on tree removal. We're removing 151 trees on the north side. There's a replacement program. Again, our replacement will be in the forestry management plan. Embedded in that will be a series of replacements on a continuing basis, as opposed to replacing by the time we get a CO or something of that nature. But we can talk in detail of that. The other aspects of the zoning we do conform with. So I just wanted to give the flavor of that. When you hear other witnesses, that's the relief we're actually seeking. So it's really one variance for the lot coverage. And then we have a series of design waivers for the parking and for the trees. Right? The other ones, we don't need.
I have a question, Ron. Just for clarification, all of your lot coverage and FAR includes the entire property, including the wetlands?
It does.
Okay, so then when you look at where the development of the property is, in about approximately half of the entire lot, is that correct? So one area is more or less dense with development, the other area is completely empty in a sense.
Yeah, and again, the equalization that you have in your ordinance is that resource calculations. So we comply with that. So you've taken that into account. And, you know, like a lot of things, you preserve one side and you do more intense on the other side. Even if I was doing a single family lot, you know, you want to put it in one area as opposed to spread it out over the whole site. That's the same philosophical. But yes, we have it on that first exhibit I showed. Majority of the developments on the right side are half and the other side is wooded.
But all the calculations include the entire lot?
It does. It absolutely does.
And so for 200 acres, those calculations Ron's talking about, give you a little over 2 acres that you have. So 1% of the lot is what that boils it down. I don't think we've asked for it. I'm not suggesting we do right now, our conservation easement. But we know that the way this property has been used and managed, those lands in the floodplain are well managed. They're part of the natural ecosystem protection that we don't have enough of in some areas. And we have plenty of here, so I think it's part of your consideration.
So that's my direct for this component. I'll come back at some point in the future.
Anyone on the board have any questions for Ron at this point?
Real quick, with the trees in section T, there will be cut down, but you have a plan to replace them as time goes on?
Well, Tim, the plan is the forestry management plan.
Okay.
So as they do harvesting and replanting,
Okay.
they're in a constant mode of keeping the forested area on that property healthy.
Okay, gotcha. So
Okay,
there's
so-
an existing plan.
And it's not a 1-for-1 or something on a forestry management, but the point is, we really can't plant in the traditional parking lot
I totally
along the
understand.
front
It's
edge
an
and
airport,
those other areas that are airport related,
Yeah.
okay? And the fact is, there's a substantial amount of that property that is wooded, whether it's in the wetlands or it's in the upland area, there's a substantial part of that property that's wooded. The notion here is there's a continuing replanting of that area that is similar to what you're trying to accomplish with your replanting.
yeah. Are these trees creating a buffer now for neighbors or anything like that, or not?
It's there already, the buffers, you know, we're not creating a new one. I mean,
You're not
around that
taking anything
perimeter.
away, you're not taking anything away in regard to a buffer?
Well, again, on the north side, that is an area that still has more than 100 foot of wooded area to
All the way up, okay.
that property, but we are taking some wood. The only area that we're taking any trees down is in this area, the north side of the property.
Okay.
Okay, within the setbacks, obviously, but that's the only area that we're actually.
Any other board member have any questions for Ron? No. Okay, we'll open it up to the public. This is for questions for this applicant only. You'll have an opportunity at the end of the application to ask any other questions or comments.
So there is a mic on the podium, if you would use that.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Jay Bone. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Schiller, Pittenger, and Galvin, PC. We represent neighboring property owner Steve Forbes. And I do have some questions. Mr. Kennedy, there were 4 resolutions of prior court actions submitted with the application. Familiar with those?
I'll say generally, I didn't study those because I didn't have the detailed plans for each of those. So I've read that, but I got, you know, I can't put all the pieces together without the plans.
Are you aware of any other approvals related to this property that are those 4 resolutions?
I don't know whether the resolutions we're talking about, whether the fuel storage was in there. I just don't know all of it. So there may have been stuff back in the 90s that I'm not aware of.
You testified that there are a number of pre-existing conditions. Now, by pre-existing, you mean pre-existing the current application.
That's correct.
Do you know when or if those features were the subject of a prior order approval?
I don't.
Do you know if they ever complied with the zoning ordinance?
So the saying, I would, couldn't.
The resource conservation calculations, are they reflected on your section somewhere?
I think, Yeah, I can look up the sheet number, but they're on,
They're on. On the sheet number.
I think it's, well, I'll look it up in a second, but I think it's on the first sheet.
On the cover sheet of the plans, you call out a couple variances, one of them, the cover lot coverage, and one of the pre-existing conditions. Then you have a separate section with other pre-existing conditions. Is there a reason why you separated the two kinds of the two sets of pre-existing conditions?
No, and again, some of those literally went away when we checked some of those calculations.
Now, you testified that the resource calculations that you said a waiver, but you've now decided it's not a waiver because it only applies to net habitable floor area and not gross floor area?
That's correct.
Did you consider in deciding whether that was a waiver or not, that section 13-401.1, part of the zoning ordinance, says that development will comply with that section?
I don't know the specific section, but I
401.
I looked at the actual environmental constraints section. And in that environmental constraints section, it requires the maximum build based on those various calculations that we did. And it talks about floor area ratio, and that's what we based it on.
That would be in what about the second or last?
That's correct.
That's on.
Anyone else from the public? Online, Jenny?
Anyone online, you can either unmute yourself or raise your hand, either way. You will have to introduce yourself.
This is Bill Monday. I'm an attorney and I represent the Harveys, the owner of Two River Farms, adjacent to this property on the west. Just a couple of questions, and if I knew how to raise my hand, I would. So, but I don't. Just a couple of questions. There was some reference to earlier site plans which were included in the application package. I wanted to know whether there is anything in those site plans that are currently not built that the applicant thinks they still have a right to. It was a little hard to compare those plans to the existing plans without having a lot of workspace and large copies of both plans. I just thought I would ask to see whether there's anything in those prior site plans that don't show up on this plan as approved improvements.
So this is my knowledge, but I'm going to say the operator may know additional information than me. I don't know of it. I did not do any of the previous applications, so I don't have the history with that. But what I've read, what I've understood, I don't believe so, but I really want to defer that to the owner of the property. They may have additional insight or information that I just don't have.
Understand. I appreciate that. Other than the one thing that you did testify to, which was that there are certain banked parking spaces, which I assume by banked you mean they've been approved, they just haven't been constructed.
Correct. And two things that we found that in a resolution, and we found that on a drawing. So we thought that obviously we should show that on this drawing as well. Okay, we don't have a lot of insight into that other than what we read in the resolution. As I said, we didn't have the old plans, but it showed, and we just wanted to represent that was on those old approvals.
No, I appreciate that. I just didn't want to be seen as trying to blindside you or something, because you did testify to those and they are on this plan. And so I wanted to just be clear that that's not, something that isn't there that the applicant thinks they're entitled to. So that's fine. So I didn't exactly follow your testimony with respect to building T. I did in a lot of ways. The lighter area in the front of building T is, I believe it's concrete. Is that correct?
Well, that's proposed, correct.
So it's not intended to be built now?
No, it is. It's just that instead of being asphalt, it's proposed to be concrete.
Okay, understood. And maybe this is a question better for the operations folks, but what is the purpose of that area? What's going to happen there? I didn't exactly follow your.
People, that's better. Obviously, the doors open up. They're hangar doors, completely open on that side of the building. So it's where to bring the plane out. But how it operates, I really would defer that to the operation folks.
So but building T doesn't have hangar space in it. Am I wrong about that?
It's a maintenance area that it opens up on the south side of that building, and a plane could be brought into the building.
Okay. I missed that in the proposal document that was, but I see it that it's there. Okay. You mentioned helicopters in that area. Is that also maintenance related?
Again, it could be maintenance related because it's a maintenance facility.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now, again, it's an operation issue, but I know that maintenance was done, a helicopter will be over there for that. And we're getting into operations. I could get corrected by the owner, but the idea was it's maintenance for the facility, for the property.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then just a clarification on the sanitary sewer. I think you said, I just wanted to be clear that there's no approval needed now because the size of the system was sufficient to take on the additional effluent that's going to be generated from the additional buildings. Is that correct?
Well, but a little, I'll clarify that, is there's still approval that was sought and received by the Board of Health. It just didn't need to expand the disposal field. Okay, so
yeah,
additional flow, we have to still build a septic tank, a pump to pump up to it, but the field itself was sized adequately for this additional flow.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear with my question, but that's a great answer. I think that's it for right now. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Anyone else, Janine?
Sure. So if there's anyone else online, again, you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself, or you can raise your hand. I don't see anyone with a hand raised, and no one has unmuted themselves.
Okay, we'll close it to the public for now, and we'll have your next witness.
Great. We'll have Mr. Parker.
I don't know if I can drive it. So, check that on this laptop. Well, good evening. Thank you all for entertaining us tonight and our application. My name is Steve Parker, and I'm representing Somerset Air Service, or George Walker Field. As Ron said, we started in 1946. My grandfather, my family, built the place 80 years ago this year. And
over the years, just like any other business, we've evolved. We're a small airport. We'll probably always be a small airport. And it's been probably almost 30 years since we last came before you to expand hangar capability. Now, we've been before this board to take underground storage tanks and make them safer and put them above ground for fuel supply. We've replaced 2 dilapidated hangars with hangars of the exact same size and layout. And we've cannibalized existing hangar space to build an office for the North Star Medevac. But in all those cases, we weren't expanding. But businesses have needs. And in the world of little airplanes and little airports, back in the day, in my grandfather's day, a little airplane, if you're a hobbyist and you bought a little airplane, it was probably a luxury that would cost you about the same as a, maybe an exotic car. If you had a Stingray or a Porsche or something like that, and you had that hobby, and it would cost you about that same amount. And geez, only about 40 or 50 years ago, $6,000, $20,000, $40,000 would buy you an airplane. And that was our clients. Those same airplanes today, if you buy a Cessna or a Piper or some of the other ones I'm going to talk about here, will cost you about as much as another house. That airplane that was $6,000 in 1975, that maybe was $40,000 in the 1990s, now comes off the assembly line at $400,000, $600,000, $800,000. So back in the day, tie downs, and you may have heard the term tie downs, people get an airplane and they would park it on their local airfield and they'd get ropes and we'd sink anchors into the ground and you'd tie it down for the time that you weren't using it. And maybe people would cover them over and put little plugs to make sure that the critters didn't get in, and that was fine. But times have changed. If you have a $500,000 or an $800,000 investment, you don't want it sitting outside. And that's part of what our business demand is. We get calls every week for hangar applications. This is my wait list. This is my waiting list to get in a hangar. Also, those people that are making those large investments in those airplanes, they want them to be maintained well. And we have a fantastic maintenance shop. Our grandfather, George Walker, that was his thing. In World War II, he taught mechanics at Casey Jones School of Aviation in Teterboro. He was too old for the war, but he knew radial engines and he could teach radial engines. And he basically built the airport around our maintenance shop. And our maintenance shop is probably one of our primary functions. Our maintenance shop is great. We've got great professionals that do excellent work on airplanes and helicopters and anything that flies. But right now they're hemmed in and they can't keep up with working on airplanes inside the existing hangar. They're now shipping off to other hangars or going down to where the customer is parked in his own hangar to try to get work done. Our flight school, you heard Ron talk about the building that goes back to World War II. That building originally came to us from Newark Airport. It was built by the war, for the war, by the War Department. When the war was over, they were selling off surplus, and my grandfather bought a building, and they put it on a flatbed, and they put cinder blocks around it, and they plopped it where our existing office is. I think it was 78 or 79 that we renovated it and took the Z-brick off the outside and made it the permanent building. But just like everything else, it's on the exact same footprint, no more square feet than was in 1946. I've got 2 classrooms that my instructors can sit down and brief or debrief a student before or after they go fly. I've got 9 airplanes that they can teach in. That math doesn't add up. Guys are kicking me out of my office because, hey, I need to debrief a student. So I go out in the hall while they use my office. So we have a great need to just continue doing what we're doing, but we need a little bit more space. We need office space for the flight school. We need more bays and room for test equipment and administrative services for our maintenance shop. And that's the reason for the construction on the north side. Also, airplanes have changed a little bit over the years, not just by being more expensive. And probably the two models out there that are the most growing manufacturers of airplanes, you might have heard of Cessnas or Pipers or Bonanzas or something, Beechcraft like that, maybe you haven't. But Cirrus, that's the one with a parachute, maybe you heard of. And Diamond, which is a Canadian-built airplane, they're very popular these days. The wingspan on those airplanes is about 38, 39 feet. Now, that might not seem terribly important, but I have hangars that won't accommodate the width of those airplanes now, and that's the latest thing. And we also have customers on the field. We have at least 3 customers on the field that own more than one airplane. We have a club, and they have 2 airplanes that they keep on the field. So those owners would like to have T hangars at least adjacent to each other. Well, I can't do that unless I can get a guy to move out of this hangar so I can put a customer's airplane adjacent to each other. So we've got plans for hangars. There are T hangars that are just one bay, fit one airplane, and there are more rectangular hangars that you could put one airplane or 2 or 3 airplanes in. And part of that is to accommodate customers, not only that have airplanes with a little bigger wingspan, but we do have some customers, and like I said, we have 2 or 3 3 or 4 right now, that might have multiple airplanes within their own operation. So that's kind of the impetus behind why we want to do what we're doing. We're not going to teach flying any different. We're not going to really fix airplanes any different than we did before. The airplanes that come and go, runway's not changing. It's not going to be a different type of airplane that was here yesterday, will be here tomorrow when this is all done. But the demand is just terribly great, and we want to meet the customer's needs. And just like every business in Bedminster, the goal is to make sure that our businesses are doing as well as we can so that the businesses can handle the, part of the tax burden.
Hey, that's my line.
No. But my point is, we're just like everybody else. We are trying to grow, we're trying to flourish, and we are one of the better airport operations in the state, and we want to keep it that way.
So let me just ask a couple follow-up questions.
Sure.
What was Mr. Kennedy described different phases of this project.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a timing aspect for this in terms of which phase would occur when? Or?
Well, that is dependent upon financing, and we do have financing for one phase, and that is the one that's on the existing pavement. And that is something that can happen shortly after approval. The other ones could take years to do. And it basically depends on financing, how we line that up. We get customers, but it could be done all of it could be done in the next 3 or 5 years. It could be 10 or 15 years before all this is done. But it's hard to go forward with a plan because the first thing they're going to ask you is, well, do you have approval to do that before I invest? So that's why we're coming.
Now, in terms of, we're looking to move the operations to the building to the north. What would be the current plan for your current offices right now?
It's very small, but it also is it's in the center of the airport, near the parking lot and the fuel farm. So it is likely the place, it'll still probably be our terminal and reception area. Somebody flies in, that's where they're going to go in to meet the reception desk. If they need to buy gas, that's where they're going to make the payment. But it's probably not, and there still may be some flight training go along in there, but it's gonna be shrunk quite a bit. But we don't anticipate at the moment that that's just necessarily gonna go away.
And in terms of the other building that the current maintenance operations are occurring in right now?
If we move to the north side, then probably that maintenance operation would move kit and caboodle all up to that north side operation. And then what's in that existing hangar would then just become storage.
And there's a question before with respect to the concrete area to the south of the existing hangar. Can you clarify that?
But which one?
I guess there was for the north building.
You mean on the north side?
Yes, the concrete area that's to the south of that, which would be separate from the circulation for automobiles and parking.
Well, and it's a maintenance facility, so you may have a couple airplanes in the bay. Well, if you got a guy in the back and he's done and you've got to move another airplane in, you've got to have parking around there. Move a couple airplanes out, rearrange it, move a couple airplanes back in. So it's a ramp area that just allows parking so we can move everybody around.
Is there some particular reason it's concrete as opposed to asphalt?
Well, yes. And recently we did a project where we repaved an area and we replaced blacktop with concrete. Some airplanes, some helicopters are really heavy and their wheels are really small. And if it's July or August and it's really, really hot, then that really tiny wheel with a lot of footprint on it starts sinking into the pavement and destroys the pavement. Concrete doesn't do that. So, yes, we'd like to make sure that we don't have a problem with that. It's impractical to concrete everything, and it's not necessary everywhere, but in that case it would be.
Now, in terms of the additional indoor space being provided, that will also provide additional security for the planes, correct, compared to?
Well, that's another thing. And people don't like to talk about this, but a big push in general aviation after 9/11 was the two-lock policy. And the idea is every airplane has a little lock on the door, but it'd be nicer if it was also locked behind a hangar. And so since 9/11, there's been a big push within the industry that the safest airplane is an airplane behind a locked door.
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you give us a little history or the importance of the presence of the medevac situation there with the helicopter?
Well, 20 some odd years ago, we made arrangements to have the North Star medevac. They came to us actually. Originally, the state police had all their helicopters down at the Trenton Mercer County Airport, just on the Delaware River, just northwest of Trenton. The medevacs were run, I don't remember where South Star was, but North Star was on the roof of University Hospital in Newark. Most of the accidents that they were coming to, 287, 78, Route 80, they're right here. And so this is right around the turn of the century. They start saying, boy, it'd be nice, we could get better response time if we were closer to where the accidents were. So they looked around and tried to figure out, well, where's the closest place? We were it, and we had the facilities for that. And that was a large application a long time ago. But they've been there ever since, and they flourished.
I didn't see a helicopter pad here. I'm not familiar with it. Where does a helicopter come and go from?
Well, the helicopter's home base, if you look, I don't know what Ron's number is, letter C, hangar C.
Yeah.
You see to the south of it is a lighter color, that's concrete. And that's their pad. That's where they roll the helicopter out.
Okay, thanks.
And their office is carved out of an adjoining hangar.
Okay, thank you.
Now, do I understand correctly, the airport's limited to the type and the size of planes that land and take off, is that correct?
The runway
Okay,
is your limiting factor.
that's it.
So if an
That's not
airplane
gonna change.
can take off or land on 2,700 plus feet of runway, that's the limiting factor.
Okay.
Airplanes change from year to year, so I can't give you exact models, yes and no, but most pilots know what's safe and what's not safe.
But the modifications you're doing here is not going to affect.
There's no change to the dimension of any of the
other
runways.
parts. Okay.
Any other board member?
So I just want to clarify. So using Ron's labeling, A is the office, D
Yes.
is the existing mechanics hangar.
Half of it is, yes.
Half of it. So essentially the A and D operations eventually move to building T,
Yes,
the new one. A,
or much of it.
much of it, A remains some type of office space. D, does that get converted to a hangar, or you said storage before?
The hangar D has three different segments to it. The south side, the bottom of your page, is simply storage. There's airplanes in there that are stored there right now. The north half, or maybe about 40%, is our maintenance facility. And then there's a little sliver of about 1,920 square feet that's carved out of the middle, and that was taken out of the old hangar storage, and that is the medevac offices.
Okay.
So if you knock on their door, that's where they're sitting waiting for the next call.
Got it. Okay.
Any other board member? No? We'll open it up to the public. If you have a question, please come up front. This is a question for,
Please use the microphone so that
Yeah,
we'll be
so
able
we
to
can-
hear you. That's on the dais. Thank you.
yeah, on the tape.
And state your name, please.
Name
Suzette Dewey,
and your address, please.
385 Larger Cross Road, Bedminster, New Jersey. That's not where I live, but that's the land I own in New Jersey. One quick question. I Googled the length of the runway, asking what kind of planes could land there. And they said there were small jets. So I'm wondering, when you talk about planes, are you talking about planes? Are you ever going to have jets coming in? Or do you already?
The pilot that flies the airplane determines if the runway is safe. 2,700 foot of runway. There are turboprop airplanes which burn jet fuel. They have propellers on the front. We have a couple bases in the field right now, and they're just flying. Has there been a airplane without a propeller that's landed in the past 20 years? I think I can count 3 times. One was a brand new Cirrus Vision Jet. He came in the middle of November with a half a tank of gas, with the wind blowing really hard. He used a lot of runway. I remember talking to him going, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. So if somebody builds a really micro jet, maybe, but they're not going to be based here. It's unlikely. Unlikely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name's Ted Schiller. It's Schiller, Pittenger, Calvin. I'm here with Mr. Bowen. He's the boss.
Speak up, please.
I'm Ted Schiller, Schiller, Pittenger, Calvin. We're here on behalf of the Forbes family. And Ms. Parker, I just want to tell you, your passion for what you do is evident, and I appreciate that. I really do. A couple of questions, though. You indicated that this is really about growth. You got to keep up with the growth and what the customers need in order to be satisfied, correct? Yeah, consistent with that, when you have growth, you have more people coming in, you say you're pushed out of your office because you're growing, you want more business, more traffic?
What do you mean by traffic?
Cars coming in and out.
There'll be more airplanes based on the field, but it's like a marina. So does everybody fly at the exact same time? Not likely.
But your schools, your teaching, those kinds of things, that'll get a little more busy, correct? You're building so that you can do that.
That's entirely based on the number of airplanes we have in a flight school, not necessarily the square footage. And right now we have 9 airplanes in the flight school. If we added 5 more airplanes to the flight school, or we took some away, that would make the flight school more busy or less busy. That's not my limiting factor right now. My limiting factor is I don't have a place to breed for deeper.
I got it. Okay, I appreciate it. But it could go up or down, correct?
But not necessarily based upon this application.
Okay. But you wouldn't have to come back here to change that.
If I bought 3 more airplanes for the flight school, the land use board has no authority.
That's my point. But it would be increasing traffic. It would be putting more people on this facility, correct?
Depends on what day they came in.
Okay, I got it. Jay asked earlier, are you familiar with any other resolutions that have been granted by this board that weren't attached, the 4 that were attached?
There's been a long history of resolutions and applications, and in reference to the question asked before, none come to mind, but I'm not going to say no, because I really don't know.
Mr. Forbes indicated that a plane recently crashed on his property. Is that accurate?
Yes, a plane landed on his property.
Landed, I'm sorry. Okay.
Well.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
Off the runway.
I got it.
And
Okay.
Call whatever you want, but
Okay.
yes.
All right. Are these hangars, are there federal or local regulations? All the planes have batteries. They all have gas in them. Some of them might have jet fuel, correct? So these are all inside. These planes are inside these hangars, correct?
You mean every airplane on the field?
No. The 94 that you're proposing will be inside, correct?
Well, we're requesting to build hangars. So the idea is that, yeah, put airplanes in.
Understood. Are there any regulations regarding how many airplanes can be in each hangar, how much gas can be in the tanks, how the batteries have to be disconnected while they're inside for fire issues?
No.
None whatsoever.
No, you can fill the tanks, you can put as many airplanes that will fit in the hangar, and the batteries are usually connected just like your automobile in your garage.
Got it. Okay. Have you considered you're going from 80 to 94, okay? And I don't recall exactly the number of square footage that takes you to the 10.62%. But if you consider how much smaller you would make one of these hangars to be within the 10% and not be before this board?
Well, probably the entertaining of getting below the ratio would probably be where that facility is on the north side. And we could, if we put it closer to the middle, then that would harm our runways. So this is the best fit based upon what the configuration of the airport.
But you could reduce one of the buildings such that the size would be such that you would not have to be asking for a variance, correct?
I suppose.
So that's about the growth part of it. That's about the income part of it. That's a benefit to your business to put as many inside as you can, correct? But you could comply with this ordinance, right?
I suppose if the application changed, of course, if the
Okay.
application was turned down, we wouldn't do.
No, understood. Part of this is about fixing these buildings up. I appreciate that. That's great. But part of it is also increasing the number of planes you can put inside. I don't mean this the way it's going to sound, but more money in your pocket.
I think every business.
I'm with you 100%. And I was just going to say, and he would appreciate that kind of concept. But the fact of the matter is, you're asking this board to do something, and I'm not really sure what the basis, why they would grant that when you could comply with this ordinance and still be in business and still have more planes in hangars than you have now.
I have more planes now. I could get to that number now by parking them outside.
No,
and I could have as many airplanes by parking them outside.
But you're asking for a variance in terms of the, right? Okay. And my point is you wouldn't have to do that if you cut down the size of one of these buildings, right? Well, no, it's a yes or a no, right? Okay, thank you. That's it. Thank you. And by the way, I meant it. I appreciate your passion. I really do.
Anyone else from the public have any questions for this witness?
If no one else does, I have a couple. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry. This is Bill Monday again, and I do have a couple of questions for Mr. Parker. I'm in looking at the application, it seemed like the only thing that was happening was some of the airplanes that are in tie-down positions outside of hangars were going to be relocated inside hangars. There was some testimony by your engineer, and I think if I've understood your testimony correctly, you are not suggesting that there will be no additional planes. Just some are going to be inside, and then as many as you can put outside will be outside. Is there some limit on the amount of tie downs outside you can have? And or, this is a two-part question, I guess. Is there a limit as to how many, you've indicated a number, you in the application have indicated a number of planes that could be, that are going to have hangar space. But I think that I heard that that number may not be static. It may not be fixed. You may be able to move things around and have more planes than you're indicating you have hangar space for in the application. Is that correct?
What Mr. Kennedy said was in some of the hangars, and I indicated this earlier, the T hangars are going to fit one airplane. The rectangular hangars, depending on the size of the airplane, you could have one airplane in there, you could have multiple. There's a guy years ago had something called a Pitts. A Pitts Special could fit in the space in between me and the dais here. A tiny little airplane. And you could put that in a regular size, Cessna 172 in that right now. We have a customer that has 2 airplanes in a little larger hangar now, where the previous tenant only had 1. So those hangars are there for flexibility, much like the club that we have on the field that has 2 airplanes. They might like to be under one roof, or we might rent it out to somebody that has an airplane. They might only want to have their 1 airplane in there, and it might be, say, the size of a Malibu, a Piper Malibu, which has a little longer wings like that Cirrus. So yes, there could be a lot of different iterations. And so Ron gave a number, but I can't absolutely for sure say, if it's a bigger hangar and we can fit 2 airplanes in there and the customer wants it, that we wouldn't do that.
Can you tell the board whether there is a limit to the number of planes that can go in the hangars and what that limit is?
No, because it depends on what the airplane is. I've seen airplanes that go into storage and the wings get folded up and it makes up for a very small spot. And sometimes people will do that. So no, I can't give you an exact number because it really depends.
How many, if this approval is granted, how many planes can be fitted outside in tie down situations?
That is not addressed in this application. This application is for building hangars. It doesn't address tie downs. And there's no request in here for tie downs.
Okay, so I'm asking about tie downs because I think it's relevant to this application. So I'd appreciate if you could answer the question. If you can't, I guess I understand that, but I'm trying to get a sense of the impact of the overall application on airport operations, which is very relevant to the surrounding property owners.
Well, I will tell you that back years ago, there were tie downs, and those tie downs still exist near the driveway. On the south side, right near the driveway, there's a handful of tie downs there. And on the north side by the tree line, there's another half tie down there. I couldn't tell you where they are in the spring when we get the lawnmower out. I'm sure the guy riding the lawnmower will hit a couple and he'll find where those anchors are. We have some others that are behind the parking lot. You can see 2 on the existing diagram that you have here, and there's a couple tie downs next to them. We also have tie downs that are dormant right now on the south side of the airport. Again, a metal detector and a little digging, and we can find those anchors and we could reactivate them again today if we wanted to. But that's not what this is about, and I'm not trying to build hangars, I don't think I'm going to be attracting a lot of people in tie downs. I think I need to meet their need with hangars. And if it was about putting lots of people on tie downs, all my tie downs would likely be I'd be tying them down today.
I appreciate that. I'm just trying to understand what was in the application and how this expansion, improvement, whatever word you want to use for it, impact that. Because in the application, it was indicated that there were 105 spaces in total. If I remember the numbers right, it was 84 and 11 to get to 105. But if my math could be wrong, but I think that's what the application indicated. And so your testimony now is, well, it wasn't exactly 105. It was the 84 inside and whatever we could put outside, right?
No, the application isn't for outdoor parking. So you're trying to get me to give you a number for how many tie downs, and I'm gonna say there is no number for tie downs.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to trick you or anything. I'm just trying to understand what you said in the application to what the operation.
And the hangar square footage is what's gonna limit.
But one thing I think the question maybe this is a better way to phrase the question, is to kind of get to the information. The building that's being proposed in the center phase of the project, currently in that location is tie-down space for the planes, correct?
Right.
So those tie-down spaces, by the nature of there being a hangar in its place, will be eliminated from the current configuration.
Yes.
If
that's your question,
I think that's
then I apologize. I didn't think of it.
The clarification I think you were looking for.
Yes, if that's the question, I apologize. But that's yes.
Well, that was part of the question, but the ancillary or the follow-up question to that is, you really aren't limited. You were not limited to the 105, and you will not be limited to 105 in total. You're not just changing some of these. You're adding hangar space that you think will house a certain number of planes, but it might be more, and there could be more tie-down spaces outside. I think that's your testimony. Is that correct?
There's nowhere in the Bedminster Code that has a limit to our capacity.
I wasn't asking about whether there was a limit in the code. I'm trying to understand the operation. That's all.
Right. No, and what I'm saying is we're applying for X amount of floor space for hangars. That's our application, is the floor space. And yes, there's airplanes that go in them, and of course that's the real need for them. But if I had a space where 2 airplanes could go instead of 1, and the customer wanted that, we'd put 2. If the customer only wants 1, we put 1 in there. That's kind of what it is.
I understand what you're saying. So to be clear, in front of Building T, I had asked a question about what was going to go on there, and I think you've answered that. I just want to ask a simple question. There will be no permanent storage of planes or helicopters or anything out there in that space. That's intended to be temporary while you're moving things in and out for maintenance, etc. Is that correct?
It's a ramp. I don't envision any tie-down rings going in there, so that would indicate a permanent place for someone to be parked. But just like our main ramp, sometimes airplanes are parked there for a half hour, sometimes they're parked there for a week, sometimes they're parked there for a couple months. So that's kind of the nature of what that area is around there. But no, there's no plans to have someone tied down permanently affixed there on that ramp. That's generally to move airplanes in and out and around.
But you're not ruling out them being there for some extended period of time, whether it's a day, a week, or a month.
Well, if you go to your local automobile repair shop, and I'm not suggesting that this is see, but sometimes a couple extra cars get parked outside for a day or two until they get them inside. We try
not to be combative, but yes, I understand. I'm asking a length question. Yes, if I was looking at and reviewing a an application by my local car dealer, I would ask the same question and have seen it asked in conjunction with car dealers and repair shops, and limits being imposed on those businesses so that there aren't excessive numbers of cars parked outside waiting to be handled and therefore weeks or months.
Well,
So I think it's an appropriate question.
I think you can answer that by looking at the exhibit here, because it's a typical day, and you can probably look at several Google Earth typical examples of a God's eye view of Somerset Airport. And how many airplanes do you see out on our general ramp right now on this exhibit? And you can go to other exhibits and you can look in places, and I think that would give you a character as to airplanes that are just kind of sitting out on a ramp. But if you're asking me for a day or an amount of time, I really can't give you that. And I have no real interest in, adding complexity to a limit so that if an airplane is parked there for 5 days and the limit is 6, we got to, that seems kind of silly.
Yeah. Listen, I understand your point.
To park someone on that ramp permanently, if that's what you're asking. No.
Okay, is there anyone else on the line? Janine, you see anybody else?
Let me just double check. I mean, you
Okay.
can raise your hand, or again, you can just simply unmute yourself if you have a question that you would like to ask of Mr. Parker on his testimony. I do see anyone with a raised hand, and no one has unmuted themselves.
Okay, we'll close it to the public.
And again, I just want to reiterate for the board that the purpose of this project is not to necessarily change, intensify the operations or change the character of the airport, but rather to serve the needs of your customers.
Yeah, the big thing is everybody that's got an expensive airplane that's outside wants to be inside.
Mhm.
We want to accommodate that.
One more question.
Sure.
You charge for being inside and outside, right?
Yeah. But I will tell you, because we heard this 20 years ago, businesses are not charities. And no, because 20 years ago, we went down this road where, somehow it was untoward for us to look to make a profit. And I'm just saying that we're a business like everybody else. We're making an application.
Okay, I think we're done with Mr. Parker for now.
Thank
And
you.
if, every next witness.
Next, we'll bring up Mr. Holes. Yeah, actually, can we give our reporter take a 5 minutes?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay, just figured this is a
Yeah.
good break.
5 minutes, yep.
Okay. Okay,
Ready.
we're back. So our next witness is Richard Holes. He is, his firm prepared the plans for the buildings that are being proposed here, and he's also a licensed engineer, specialist in aviation. So what I'll do is I'll ask you, again, you gave your name and business address before. Can you just give the board the benefit of your educational background? What degrees do you have and any licenses you hold?
Sure, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from Penn State. The only active license that I have right now is New Jersey. I've retired, I'm getting close to retirement, so I'm retiring my licenses as they come up, but I still have my New Jersey license and I'm still practicing.
And you've been an engineer that's focused on aviation for how many years?
Since 1995, so 31 years.
Okay. I guess, and you're also prepared the plans over Smith
That's
Park
correct.
subdivision.
Yeah, I can expand on that.
Sure, I just have to hold on. I have to, Mr. Holes as a licensed engineer.
The board will recognize Mr. Holes as a licensed Professional engineer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are up to, what I'll ask you to do is, I'm going to ask you to walk through the plans that were submitted with respect to the buildings. So first, we'll talk about the buildings that we proposed, because I know Mr. Kennedy talked about in his introduction some of the size of the buildings, the bays and whatnot, but this will just go into the details of the actual project which we proposed. And what we'll do is we'll mark, this is what's being shown on the board, we'll mark as exhibit
A5, I think.
yes. So mark the A5, and these are just the architectural plans for the buildings that are being proposed with this project, correct?
Correct. Chris, were they the same as what were submitted with, as part of the application set?
Yes.
Well, we don't need to mark them separately. They're just the architectural plans and elevations.
Okay, great. Okay, so what I'll ask you to do is run through each building for each phase and just clarify what phases they're going to be for, and so that way the board has a bearing as to which ones.
Okay. So the first page, drawing AP01, is the middle section, the ones that would be constructed on the pavement. It consists of 3 hangars under one roof. There would be the hangars there's 2 of them that are 65 feet wide by 62 feet deep. And again, as Mr. Parker testified, you can put either a single aircraft or multiple aircraft in these hangars. They have an 18-foot, what's called bifold door. And what a bifold door is it folds up and in half. So it's a little like an envelope. So it sits like this, folds up, and that's just a bifold door. It allows the aircraft to be put in, and then you put the door back down. These hangars are to be of the same color and quality as would match the existing hangars at the airport. They have, and we talked, there was discussion earlier about being able to park the car. And because these hangars are right near the entrance road, we do have a garage door in the back, so the aircraft owner can come in, press a button, pull into his hangar, get his plane out, and off he goes. And then when he goes back, same thing, put the plane away and back out, and he can leave from that location. Again, these hangars, I think it is important that they can house either a single aircraft or multiple aircraft, depending on the hangar lessee.
And the height of the buildings?
The total height's about 27 feet at the peak. Again, the door is 18 feet high. 18 feet accommodates most or all single and light twin engine aircraft, the tail height, and that's what we look at is the height of the tail. You typically want to have 1.5 to 2 feet between the top of the tail and the bottom of the door, so so you don't hit the tail on the door at any point.
Okay, and this is for the central phase.
This is the central phase, yeah.
Okay, so then let's talk about.
When you say central phase, you mean building
I'm
U?
sorry?
Building U.
Yes. The T hangar, which is
what page? Just so Ron can pull it. What page are we on?
On AP02.
Okay.
Okay. This is what's called a T hangar. And if you look at it, basically the wing box is in the front. So you push the plane back into the hangar. The tail is in the back, and then this is a nested T hangar. What that means is the tails are all against one another. They are all parked against one another. You can fit 10 aircraft in this hangar. You always end up with a small unit on the end. A lot of times we put those with the adjacent unit. Sometimes you can, the airport can use it for storage or anything like that. But that's those half T's on the ends, just to explain what those are. These T hangars are for smaller aircraft. They have a 42-foot door on the front. So, you're going to have about a 41-foot 6-inch wingspan or less that fits into these into these T hangers. And then the door is 12 feet high. So again, the other door was 18 feet high, 6 feet of difference. So lot lower tail on these hangars. So these are typically going to be your smaller aircraft that are stored in these hangars. Again, these are, I should have mentioned it earlier, but the 62 by 65, the 56 by 62, these T hangars, those are standard hangars that are manufactured in the United States. There are 2 hangar manufacturers primarily in the country, and we just use the information that they have. So if Mr. Parker tells me this is what we want to do, we go in, figure out which hangar fits that need, and that's what we typically utilize in that location.
So again, for this type of T hangar, which I believe is in the eastern
side
of the property, that expansion, there's other ones near there too, but also this would typically lend itself for typically more of the one single plane within the space and a smaller plane where it's the other.
Yeah, there are 3 other T hangars on the airport, so this is just.
And it would be consistent with the design and appearance of those
exactly.
And the size.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now what page are you looking at?
AP03. This is the other hangar that's on the east side, the one that sits behind the T hangars. This is the same hangar as as we talked about with the one in the middle. They're same size hangars, same 56 by 62. So similar use, it's a little smaller than the 65 by 62. You're probably not going to get more than 2 aircraft into this hangar at any time. And everything else is the same as what we discussed earlier.
And this is the other building that's on the eastern
east side. Yes.
They're getting the same height, same design, same as consistent with the character of what they're doing.
That's exactly correct. And then on AP04 on the south side, there are these are the same hangars, the 56 by 62. We have 2 together and 3 together here, and those are the ones that are on the south side of the airport.
So for the south side, there's going to be 5 separate spaces within 2 buildings. And this page is
AP04.
just give Brian so we can get. Wait a second to pull that up.
That's the floor plan.
Okay.
And then P05 is the elevation. And again, they're exactly the same as what we talked about in the middle of the airport.
Now, in terms of the hangars, are there lights being required by the FAA to put these on?
That depends on the location of the hangar with regards to the runway. Every runway has what's called a primary surface, and it varies in size based on the type of runway it is. You're not allowed to build anything in the primary surface. That's basically your roadway, so to speak. Once you get out of there, it's called a transitional surface. It goes up at 7 to 1, 7 horizontal to 1 vertical, and you can have a penetration of that, but you have to light it. What we do in that case is the highest point at the closest point to the runway receives a red obstruction light. And I know there are some out at the airport right now. They're a steady burning red light. They come on, they're on photocell, come on at night. And they are basically to alert the pilots that there is an obstruction out there. And it's, just basically so they know if you go over there, there's something there that they might hit.
So that will be on these buildings as well?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about the building for the northern side, which would have the mechanic space, effectively the hangar for mechanic space, as well as the office and other administrative uses, school, whatnot. That was constructed.
Yeah, this is
what page?
This is drawing AP07, which is the floor plan, and AP08, which is the elevation. This hangar is a little different in that it's not a standard manufactured hangar. So this would be a hangar where we would have to go out and get a steel manufacturer to manufacture the building that firms and say, I want this hangar. That does not exist. So this hangar, again, as has been discussed, the front part is the hangar area, which is in this case going to be the maintenance area. And this allows them to probably maintain 6 aircraft, I would think, at one time. 3 in the front, 3 in the back, likely, depending on how they're doing it, what they're doing. But it gives them a lot more flexibility than what they have now. Again, everything in the back is basically for the employees and things of that nature, and the customers that are having their planes worked on. We have discussed the concrete apron out in front, and as Mr. Parker mentioned, a helicopter landing on asphalt, and I've seen it happen, can sink right down into the asphalt. I've seen it more times than I care to admit. So we usually put concrete, a 4-inch concrete in that area where we have the potential to have helicopters. And then as far as the
enter the buildings, the use again, in the back, the rear back of that, I guess the northern side of that building would be the operations for the flight school, would be the conference rooms, the administrative offices, that type that was described before.
Yeah, and if you see, we have briefing rooms in there, we have offices, and then there's learning areas too, because a lot of flight training, you bring the potential pilots in and have the training with them together. So, we have a small conference room, reception area, things like that.
Okay. And in terms of the elevation of that building?
It is the doors, same as we talked about with the other hangars, 18-foot bifold door, 18 feet high. It's a little wider. I think it is maybe 100 feet. So, but that allows for the most flexibility with the maintenance of those aircraft. Like I said, you could have 3 in the front, 3 in the back, and having this door be the full width of the building allows for that.
And will there also be a red
yes.
light on this as well?
Yeah, this one is relatively close to the edge of the primary surface. So yes, it would have an obstruction light on it.
Now, when you were talking before about the distance required and the separation of spacing from the runway, the project will meet all FAA requirements.
That's correct. Yes.
And in terms of the requirements, those requirements also dictate the spacing of these buildings too, correct?
That is correct, yes. Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of this airport currently does not allow for future development. Just because of everything that's, we have 3 runways, so you have 3 primary surfaces crossing, and so there's really just not a lot of area to develop. When Mr. Parker and I and Mr. Walkers and I sat down and looked at this, we came up with the areas where we felt there was the potential for development.
And it required to be separated because of those FAA requirements.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Board, any questions for this witness?
The construction materials will be similar to what's there now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Steel?
Yeah, steel, metal panels on the front, again, metal bifold door, same colors as the airport currently uses. Yeah.
How are the hangar units internally divided? Right, is that like a steel wall?
Yeah, usually they can be either a partial partition, so only go up part way to separate them, or they can be a floor to ceiling. We haven't really gotten to that level yet. Same with the T hangars. The T hangars, you can run it from the floor to the ceiling, or you can just have it up to the top of the door and leave the rest open. So,
Paul, I assume fire suppression is a building permit.
That's all building code and covered by that.
Any other board member or witness?
Madam Chairman, I did have
Yeah,
a question, and I brought this up in my letter because there's a note on the plan that says the lighting on all these buildings is regulated by the FAA. And I understand that in the context of the obstruction lighting. But is there any FAA requirement for lighting over egress doors or other lights on the sides of the buildings, just basically white light?
Yeah. Yeah, as much as you don't want to, as much as the township and the neighbors don't want to see light, pilots don't want to see it either. Everything that we design is a downward facing light, and it doesn't expand about beyond 40 or 50 feet in front of the hangar. And that's where the aircraft be pulled out, saying hooking up to the tug and things like that, push it back in. But yes, all of our lights, and we have, Mr. Kennedy, we've provided him with the typical lights that we use for these hangars, and they're down facing lights.
Okay, and I understand. I just wanted to have that on the plan, so we've got that information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I have also on the plan located where I believe the obstruction lights will need to be placed.
Thank you.
No? Anything else, Paul?
No.
Okay, Frank, anything? No? Okay. Okay, we'll open it up to the public if they have any questions.
Or comment, or testimony.
Or comment, yes, or comment. Seeing
So
none?
anyone who wants to make, so this is not only question?
No. We're not to the point. I'm sorry, Tom, I got to interrupt you because we're not to the point of testimony yet because Ron is going to come back with some additional.
Oh, okay.
And we also have to have planning testimony as well. So we're a couple away from that.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just any questions for the last testimony?
Seeing none, how about the
Online, anyone?
Online.
So again, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand if you have any questions for the last.
No questions.
Okay, seems like there's nothing. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll close it to the public for this. Okay.
So,
and we'll welcome Ron back.
Yes, I think it'd be, since we have the time, I think it might be productive to have Ron start with his full engineering testimony. In a little detail of the project.
Back, I'm still on the road.
Yes, thank you.
Want to make sure I get back to my exhibits. Sharing. How do we do that? Okay, I'll get through a couple of other details that I did not testify originally on to get the story out. But the last thing that was just spoken about now was the lighting. And based on working with Rick in his office, we actually prepared a lighting exhibit. I assume that would be 6.
A5.
So A5, and the start of that would be on this exhibit. We show the areas in front of each of those doors that fold up. And this would be above that door. And the fixture itself that we were given is in this corner here. It is LED. It's a wall sconce that's hung above the door. It is dark sky compliant, Darwin only, LED. It's about 8,000 lumens. We're showing it now at 4,000 Kelvin, which is in between, not too white, not too yellow type of light that's there. And it's mounted depending on the type of building. The T hangars are lower, the other hangars are a little higher. So it would be somewhere between 16 feet to 25 feet as far as the height of these things, where the mount fixture is itself. And you'll see the impact only goes, 20 to 30 foot away from the down. It's not going up, it's not going out, and the impact basically handles, I'll say, the ramp in front of each hangar. So the intent here, based on what we've reviewed with the consultants, is that each of these new areas would have a light above each of the fixtures. And my understanding is it would be owner driven. Whoever owns or rents that space would be driven, and it would only be used when they're taking it out or back in. It's not something to be at night, every night, not something to be on. It's only as needed when you're in operation.
Just an on-off switch.
Yes. Okay, not an automatic photo cell that goes on. And as you heard, what I heard is light's not a friend of the airport and the airplanes. So the intent is only to have it isolated to the area of the work area inside or outside the building where you'd be taking your plane in or out. So the intent of this exhibit is to show that it's limited to 25 to 30 foot outside the hangar would be the limits of the cutoff of any of that. And as I said, controlled only as needed. This is not dusk to dawn. It's not on a photo cell. It's a switch on and off. Another exhibit that we talked about in general terms, but an exhibit, we'll call it A6. It's just a phasing plan that for the site. And I talked in the north, central, east, and south. But this just puts an exhibit together to make it clarify it simply associated with each one of these phases. So that one phase is not dependent on another phase for the improvements. And that would include any utilities, stormwater management, any construction of any additional pavement that would be required, and each one would be isolated amongst itself. So the goal here is that each one could be built independently of the other without affecting the site improvements that are required. As you heard in the testimony from Mr. Parker, it could be an extended period of time. I believe we're over a certain size of land that we would likely ask for an extended approvals by this board if it was granted for a certain duration. And we'll look at what that duration could be, but certainly more than a couple of years that a typical site plan would run, because this is likely going to be a longer extension of all these improvements that we're talking about being built. All right. The next thing I wanted to do is go back to exhibit, I believe it's A4. A4, and talk about the other physical improvements. In order to minimize disturbance and coverage, we're limiting the driveway that goes to the north side building to only 12-foot width without curb. We're widening it up at the radius at the turn where it turns 90 degrees for two-way traffic to pass. And then halfway down that driveway, we widen it out again so two vehicles can pass. So rather than build a wider driveway, we're building a narrow driveway that has a turnoffs so vehicles could be accommodated. Again, low frequency type of in and out traffic that would be here. Our intent is to minimize having the driveway only 12-foot wide, and then again, bumping it out in a couple of areas for passing lanes, eventually to where you get back to the hangar space itself. Around the hangar, that is what we call the T hangar, not T hangars, but the building T, which is the building on the north side. We will have a 4-foot high fence and gates that would be for the access from, again, the vehicle side versus the air side, so prevent anyone from not understanding where they're going to get onto a space that they really don't want. And it would allow only for certain people to get into that space. The other improvements that you'll see in here is the details of the stormwater management that we have on the property. You'll see for this site, while it's spread out over a fairly long area and skinny, there's a series of 5 basins associated with that. Not a lot of necessarily new impervious coverage or disturbance, but the new rules that we have to deal with is no drainage area can be bigger than 2.5 acres before you have to have all the water quality treatment peak rate of attenuation cutoff. You can't just put one basin at the bottom of the hill. So in this case, what we're doing with stormwater management and spreading it out over a longer distance, basically bringing water quality and attenuation and peak runoff closer to each of the sources. So you don't have a lot of pipe running a long distance and bring it to one. You have it closer to where that actual new impervious coverage is. So on this plan, you'll see two long skinny basins that are associated with the driveway. You got larger basins that are spread out, two on either side, one on either side, a total of two, on either side of the building and the impervious coverage for the parking lot, and then one at the end of the taxiway before it meets the existing taxiway to get a plane out to that area. A lot of detail these days with these systems themselves, a lot of comments that Mr. Ferraro has in there. I'll get to the comment that we have plenty of land to accommodate this. We have to do some, refinement of some of those calculations in order to get compliant. And as this board understands, as Mr. Ferraro and his team are going to make sure that we're compliant with the specific standards of the stormwater standards. In other sections of the project, we will have areas between W and V. We will be using porous pavement as another treatment, as another alternative. So that'll be porous pavement basically on the ramp that goes up to each of the 4 hangars on W. And the intent of that is, instead of building a basin that would be difficult around the runway itself or around the taxiways, we would actually do porous pavement in that area and discharge to the existing stream, or it's just a corridor that's off to the east of this diagram. Additionally, down in, on the south section, we have 2 different types of treatment here, where we have a small bioretention basin to the south of Y that will treat and discharge. And we have porous pavement just to the west of the proposed hangar X. So we're using different techniques to use for stormwater management. Again, spreading out where we're putting stormwater management features, and then complying, and certainly we have to comply with all those detailed standards. There's still some details to work on. Confident we will have those completed and be in compliance, but it's not going to change the concept of what we have now with the stormwater. Next item that we have is the general utilities around the property. I talked about the stormwater, the sanitary sewer system. The existing system runs from A to C and D, and then actually has a force main that goes to the disposal field that's all the way up in the upper left-hand corner, just to the west of proposed building T. That won't change. There'll be no changes to that. The only thing that will be new is on building T, as I said previously, it'll have a septic tank, a pump tank, and it'll go into the existing system itself. Water, we show on the plan that we'll have our detailed plans that will have a new well near T. And again, that's what we showed to the Board of Health. We have the safe distances from the septic tanks and from the disposal field to be in compliance with the standards. So we don't see a problem with complying that. And it's likely that we'll build that additional well. We won't use the existing well for that. Plenty of volume, that's not the issue. We're not using that much water there realistically for the amount of people that would be in this building, but it's more about distance from one side of the property all the way to the other side of the property, going around the airfield itself. There's no disturbance on the property that gets anywhere near any of the regulated areas, that we're staying away from those. We're not disturbing into any of the wetlands or the transition areas or any of the floodplains, anything near those areas. The total disturbance per stormwater calculations is 6.62 acres. That's the total disturbance of all phases of the ground. So whether that's pavement that we're putting a building on top of and having, 10 foot around the building because you have to excavate additional pavement in order to construct it, or whether that's new pavement or new driveway or new parking or new building, the total amount of disturbance is 6.62 acres that are there. Some of that, much of that will be restored. It'll be lawn area, it'll be detention basin areas, it'll be infiltration areas, but the total disturbance is 6.62 acres. Extensive soil testing has been done on the property already for where we can infiltrate and where we can fit these stormwater management features. As I said, the Bedminster soils isn't the greatest out there, but near where building T is, we found an area that did have infiltration and had rates similar to where the septic system had soils, it looks like, that we do, but soils that were conducive to meeting infiltration requirements. So we will be able to infiltrate stormwater management on a portion of the property and be in compliance with the regulations. I think that's it. That's all that detailed on the storm or on the engineering side of things. I'll say it's a simple plan as far as what we're doing. There's not a lot of elements of the design. It's buildings, it's some parking areas and some circulation for the planes themselves, and everything else is just the stormwater management design. No new signage that's out there. There's, like, I guess I would call it a sign. It's a log that's carved with the name of the airport in it, and it sits about 30 feet back off the roadway. But you have to really look hard to figure out if the sign's there. So there's no change to that. It's not lit. There's no changes to any of those things. So any of the typical, non-residential development type of things were just not there with this type of application that we would be reviewing.
And Ron, no wayfinding signs with that right turn coming off the driveway?
They said that they don't think they need it.
So people who are going to be using it know where to go.
Yeah, that's right. And even on that airport now, I think I've started going there when it's probably 4 years old. There's never been a sign up there for anything. You found your way in there. A couple of times, I think my father got in the wrong place when we went up to see the airplanes land as a treat sometime when we were much younger. But there's just not signs on that property, and it seems to work. There are some controls with some fencing, so that I think that is something that we added, some fence controls so they can't get into the airport areas that are more airport plane sensitive.
Hey, Paul, is the proposed driveway width okay? 12 feet and with the wire sections, is that allowed?
Well, they technically need a design waiver for that. And I think what part of Mr. Kennedy's testimony will be when he gets into the variance and design waiver planning testimony is justifying that. I think what they've done is they've widened it at the curve. They've widened it for some passing areas. And I think, maybe that could be fleshed out with some additional testimony as to what the frequency of trips in there and out are. This is not the driveway to Bridgewater Mall, so I'm not overly concerned that there's going to be a lot of vehicles conflicting with each other. But I think some information on the record may be useful in that regard.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get Steve to talk, but what I understand too is it really is not a lot of movement that goes back and forth. A student or two come in at a time and do their classes, and then they move away from that area. Employees are in and out, but once the employees are there, they're moving around the airport on the airport side, not necessarily on the driveway side, with their vehicles that are there. So the employees have, I'll call it UTVs or whatever that they're moving around the airport that they have on that we've seen.
So that access drive is only for access to building T and not for internal site circulation?
It is not, correct. It's only to building T, and it's just those operations that are there. So general office staff, not that many, that's there. The biggest thing that the turnover would be training, but that's usually a small effort for that training. It's not, 20 people coming at a time. It's not group sessions, it's
I mean, I'm all
generally
for
one-on-one.
reducing the impervious coverage as long as it's safe, and the operator would know that.
You know, we've seen this from time, it's a time where we do narrow driveways and it works. You know, that it works in those things. And again, it goes back to frequency of travel. It goes back to sight distance as well. Okay. So if I get there, I can see all the, this is site as you, well, I didn't testify. The site's fairly level. Okay. It's a pretty flat plane that goes through the site. So it's not like you have substantial topography up and down where you lose sight visibility because there's a hump in the roadway. There's no trees in the way there. You have total sight distance of someone coming in and out. But for the most part, the operation's daytime. There's not nighttime operation. So we're not getting people at the nights that are coming in and out that. You know, for the most part, it's a daytime operation.
And you have no curb, so if there were two vehicles swerve off.
One's going off a little to the side type of thing. That's good. That's there. So we've run some profiles through here. So the bigger vehicles that need to get in here, like a truck that I drive once in a while, we need to get there. Okay, so a fire truck, we're going to make sure that we can get that turning radiuses accomplished there by widening out that turn that you saw at the corner, widening out the intersection so you can actually get a larger vehicle. I'm sure there's going to be refuse. They're going to have some deliveries. Obviously, emergency vehicles need to get in there, and we want to make sure that's the case. Straight 12 foot, that's fine. When you get in the curves, you got to go away.
Any other board member have any questions for Ron?
And Paul, you addressed, does that address your comment?
Well, there's obviously a lot in my letter. Most of it's focused on the stormwater. They've got a decent amount of work that needs to be done on that. And I suggested that we, you know, they provide us some initial information and potentially have me in my office start to work through those items because there's a good amount of work that needs to be done. I think it's notable that the board may be aware that the DEP adopted new stormwater requirements as of January 20th of this year. They do not apply in this case because the application was deemed complete before July 20th of this year. So this is subject to the 2023 rules, and we've reviewed it in that regard.
Good. I guess we'll open it up again to the board, to the public.
So right now, I'm just opening it up for questions, correct? Mr. Kennedy? So if there's anyone in the room that has any questions for Mr. Kennedy or anyone online, you can unmute yourself or you can raise your hand.
Seeing no one.
I've got a couple of questions. Bill Monday again. For Mr. Kennedy, you said that or you implied maybe that there's, you know, very little night work. Do you know how much?
I don't, but I'm sure Mr. Parker can give an answer very quickly.
I was going to ask him actually come and test it because the question came up about number of vehicles and trips and use to that T building. I was going to have Steve answer that when you're finished. So
yeah, that's good. That was my next question.
No, our office is open 8 to 5, 7 days a week. The airport, by the FAA, is open 24 hours a day for a customer to park there or whatever. Some of our flight school, part of the flight school curriculum is I think each student has to get a couple hours a night flying. Generally, that's taken to another airport and we take off and then we land back at our airport. We usually go to a bigger airport to do the takeoffs and landings or the mandatory cross-country navigation flight. So there is some night flying, not a lot. The medevac, they're a 24/7 operation. But we don't have a night shift per se. Our maintenance shop is certainly not, doesn't work at night, and our office is closed. So the folks that, the instructors come out individually to fly with those students at night. So it's sporadic. Certainly, maybe 1 or 2 nights during the week, you might get occasional night flights that are associated with school.
that would be using this building in this room to get access? Because that's where this question, so that's where this
Yeah,
question's
maybe,
coming
yeah,
from.
yeah, they might meet there before going out on their flight or when they come back.
And in terms of the other operations here, I guess, because you heard questions before with respect to the staggered use of this road and having the width of the road be only for vehicles occasionally. How many vehicles? I mean, we're not expecting substantial amounts of vehicles back and forth at different
No, and certainly at night, you're looking at maybe 2 instructors and 2 students on any given night. That would be a heavy load.
And again, they're coming in at the same time and coming out at the
they'd
same
be coming at different times.
So you don't expect much crossover in terms of
Not really.
even during the day as well, with people coming with classes and everything else.
We don't, typically, it's one-on-one instruction. So you come for your appointment with your instructor. So it's not necessarily, we have 15 people coming for the 2 o'clock class, because that's not how we operate.
But you don't expect.
How many people?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask how many full-time employees you expect in Building T. I know that you probably don't have an exact number, but roughly.
Oh, the maintenance function would probably have 5 or 6 in that neighborhood, and then a couple students and a couple instructors coming and going.
So maybe 10 at a time.
Maybe, yeah.
Something like 10.
Yeah.
A question for Mr. Kennedy. Just to be clear, there's not any lighting proposed on that driveway to Building T?
There is not. And just to be clear, there's no lighting on any driveway on this property.
And lighting on the outside of Building T? I may have missed it on your earlier plan.
The only lighting would be just over the large airport door.
In the front, you did indicate that, I'm sorry.
Okay. Now, I'd say probably, likely code-wise, that there is an entrance to the office side of things. Likely the code would require a small, I call it a jelly jar, but an ornamental type of light right outside the door as the egress. That would likely be required. We don't show that on the plan, but I'm sure the building code is going to require something like that because it's an office use. But we're literally talking about a 100-watt type of light bulb that you would have at a residential type of thing, at a minimum that you would need at that entrance.
So I may have Thanks. I may have missed it, but when you were talking about the stormwater drainage by Building W, I didn't see the basin area that you were referring to having the same impervious pavement or covering as you did with respect to the other building. I guess the question is, how do you get, is this something you can drive over? Because otherwise, how do you get to Building W? It looked like the stormwater basin is there where you would otherwise be getting to it.
Yeah, it's pervious pavement. It'll have to be designed a little different than what would be in a typical parking lot. The loads aren't heavier. I'm told they're just a little different. We understand there's a standard for airports for pervious pavement that's a little different than parking lot standards for that. But it would be pervious pavement, and then below that there will be a stone layer that will have storage capacity to deal with the volume of the increased rate of runoff. Below that will be a pipe and a media that will take that clean water away and discharge that. So there's a combination of attenuation of peak rate of runoff and water quality before it gets discharged out into, ultimately into a flared end section or discharge pipe.
Okay, the plan doesn't currently indicate that, but I guess you'll make that change.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is just an exhibit. We have very detailed plans that show all those details. We have cross sections. I mean, there's on the submitted plans, there's a lot of detail that has that design already.
Okay. So you indicated that there has not yet been any work done on the driveway to the building in the north. So you don't know whether a fire truck could get in there yet? Was that accurate?
No.
Am I characterizing it accurately?
No, I said we modeled that to show even the reduced width that the turning movements can accommodate a fire truck to get back there.
Okay, I missed that. I apologize. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're,
Anyone else online or in the audience that had public comment or questions for Mr. Kennedy?
Can I ask just one more? I noticed that Mr. Kennedy, I'm paraphrasing, that there was a lot or significant or, a bunch of work that had to be done on stormwater management. I certainly don't tend to understand that, but what do you mean by that? What still has to be done?
So, Ron, let me take that.
Sure.
In my review letter from January 26th, we had 55 comments on the stormwater design. Some of them are fairly simple. Some of them ask for more information. Some of them ask for some more consistency between plans and calculations. That's the additional work. There's some additional soil testing that's going to need to be done in the field. That's really what needs to be done. These comments are not unusual. These rules are complex, and my reports have gotten much longer on the stormwater commentary than they have on anything else over the years.
Understood. So that's work that still has to be done. I get it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
okay, we'll close the public to this last witness. Oh, you have another question?
No, I thought it was comments. Oh, we're not comments. I was going to bring Steve up to just again. I just wanted to say on the record because we talked about it a little bit before. So again, Steve Parker, I'd like to just ask again, with the width of this driveway and the amount of traffic you see generated from here, this is adequate for your needs, correct?
Yes.
Because it's not going to be a number of vehicles coming and going at the same time typically. Such a light use to this building too.
Yep.
Okay. That's it. That's all I have.
Okay.
I guess we have to, if anyone has questions about that.
Well, yes, anybody for Mr. Parker? Public?
Right, so the last question or comment from Mr. Parker. Just a question for Mr. Parker.
Okay, seeing none, we'll close it.
So at this point, with respect to our presentation, we still provide planning testimony. We still provide additional engineering testimony based on just the revisions per proposal, Ms. Ferrer's letter.
Okay.
So we can finish our presentation at this point for tonight. I think that's, like I said, we'll still have, a portion of Mr. Kennedy's testimony remaining, but in terms of planning aspect, in terms of a little bit of engineering follow-up, that's what we, I guess, a stopping point for us for the time being.
Can you finish up in the next few minutes? Or?
No, I think we have to do the additional work.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see some additional stormwater stuff come back.
Okay. All right.
Just to get me to the higher level of comfort.
I got it. And do you feel we need further hearing?
Yeah. So we have to come back for another meeting.
They have to do the planning testimony, which they haven't gotten into yet.
Okay.
And typically, you see the planning testimony that they wrapped up.
So Madam Chairman,
yeah.
I'd like to, I asked the question of a couple of people during tonight's presentation about what, if anything, the applicant thinks survives from earlier approvals. I think there was a reference to 2022 approval. And Ms. Kennedy pointed out correctly that there is some banked parking that's shown on this application. But I think it's fair for the applicant to tell the board and the public whether they think there's anything else, because they've submitted those prior resolutions and plans as part of this application, which appears to be history. But I think it's important for the applicant to tell us what, if anything, they think survives those earlier applications. And frankly, I would think that those should be put on these plans. But certainly would like to hear definitively whether the applicant thinks there are other issues there, so that the public can really understand what's happening here. Certainly there's phases here, and some of these improvements might not be done in later phases. And I think it would also be relevant to hear from either Mr. Kennedy or the applicant's attorney what kind of life they expect of the approvals here. I think it was Mr. Kennedy who indicated, appropriately, that a project this size gets some special protection under the municipal land use law. So I think it ought to be put on the record just so everybody's on the same page.
So can I just ask one question with respect to that? You consistently reference plans that were submitted as part of the application from prior approvals. Is there a plan you're referencing in particular? You referenced that a couple times. I just want to make sure we understand what you're referencing in that regard.
I think it was a 2022 plan, but I could be mistaken. I have to go back to my notes, but certainly I can communicate to the applicant's attorney, after the hearing tomorrow or whatever, just to focus their attention.
So one of the plans that we're required to submit under your ordinance is the master plan, the FAA master plan that's been provided for the airport. And I just wanted to clarify. This is a plan that was given, it's prepared by McFarland Johnson. It's dated, I believe, January of 2023. And I think this was a concern, effectively, and in terms of Mr. Parker, a master plan is not an approved plan that was got all the necessary approvals between the township and the county and every other permit and whatnot, correct?
Right.
It's just a plan that was filed with the FAA about potential yield, certain possibilities of what could potentially be yielded here further. Is that accurate? And again, that's not what's being proposed here or what the prior approvals are, but that's just an obligation the applicant had to file per your ordinance, which is actually set forth in the ordinance. We had to give a copy of this master plan. But just like any master plan that the township may adopt, it's not necessarily a list of approvals. It's just kind of conceptual, exactly. What could potentially someday be contemplated here, and not what's part of this application.
Well, that's fine. That's sort of where we're going. We just want to understand that I believe that plan may show the expansion of runways.
And that's not been secured, and that's not being proposed as part of this application.
Well, I understand that, and that's why I wanted to just make sure that we all are on the same page on that there isn't something that the applicant thinks they are getting approval for in that, or has approval for, because if they have it and it hasn't been built, it ought to be shown on this plan. And if it hasn't been approved, it doesn't have to be shown on this plan, but just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Not this isn't a terribly big issue. Just we want to make sure everybody understands where we're at.
Sure. Again, there's nothing being proposed here with respect to the, right, can you just, I guess, Steve, I'll ask you just.
No, the geometry of the runway is not anywhere in this plan.
Madam Chairman, if I could, I would just like to weigh in a little bit on this because I'm showing my hairline on this because one of the first applications that I looked at in 1990 related to Somerset Airport.
My first application too was in 2000.
This was 1990, so I beat you by 10 years. But there are some things I want to go back and look at the records on that because there were some very old approvals. I want to compare them to what was submitted with the application. So I've got to go with Janine and look in some old minute books to see what we can.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah. All right.
That's fine.
Okay, so we're going to pick a date
Yes.
for you to come back. Okay.
Yes, this was next month.
It would be the March 12th. March 5th, we already have AT&T.
Okay.
Okay. All right. March 12th. Everybody's available.
Well, no further notices required.
Yes, if we're done, this hearing on the Somerset Air will be carried without additional notices to March 12th, 2026 at 7 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your time.
Can I ask a
everyone.
clarifying question?
I think we're done, Bill.
I think we had a clarifying question to be asked.
Yeah, simple. This is Richard Hoynes. I live at 1500 Burnt Mills Road. I'm sorry, I thought there was a section at the end where we had it.
Yeah, we're not done the hearing, sir. We're done for tonight. We are done for tonight.
Okay.
And the case has been carried already. So you will have to come back on the 12th of March at 7 p.m. if you would like to make a statement or ask any questions of any new witness or witnesses who testify that night.
I see. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so this applicant is done for now. And we have March 5th, AT&T. And I need
And we have a special meeting on February 26th.
26th, yeah. Everybody?
Is that okay, Mayor?
Yes.
Thanks.
Well, it's now been, the attorney has the plan. Yeah, so it's ready to go.
So we'll see you February 26th, March 5th, and March 12th. Check out these people.
And you may be getting an application next week. They specifically maybe.
Very good. Thank you.
Ron, is there an application coming in next week?
That's not very.
I can say this, I have 3, but you want me to choose which one you want?
Which will result in the greatest tax revenue to the town?
A 10-story building in my life.
That's the one that Larry wants.
That's not coming. All right, yes, an application will be submitted, we're told, next week. Okay, so but there's 2 other ones. Fine.
Okay.
Busy.
Yep, keep us in business.
Well, I know what one of them is.
Don't cheat.
I don't know about the third.
All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. See you on the 26th.
See you on the 26th.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.